It was a dark time. They always say, may you have your troubles early. Luckily, I had mine early. I had to find a way out of the darkness because there was a lot of darkness. I had to jump over the bar. I'm fighting these two guys on West 4th Street. And as I'm fighting them, another voice comes and says, you don't have to have this life. And it just stopped me. So my audition was good enough for me to get in the line of fire. So that's why it's so important to show up every single time, because you just never know. I've worked 43 years as an actor straight. Wow. And then I was thinking before that, I must be, 10 years old and I'm ringing your doorbell. Can I shovel your snow? Can I rake your leaves? Can I wash your car? Whatever. I've been doing that since I'm 10.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I have not stopped.
Hey everybody, it's Seano McFarlane. If you're enjoying the Seano Show, make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. New episodes drop weekly. Oh man, today's guest isn't just a celebrated actor or Golden Globe winner. He's someone who's changed my life. When I was at a crossroads, Dylan McDermott didn't just believe in me, he backed me. He directed me in a play when others wouldn't cast me. He let me crash at his place in New York when I needed a landing pad. And maybe most importantly, reminded me, don't quit, man. Keep going, Seano. Keep showing up. Keep creating. He's been my brother in recovery, my sponsor, my friend for over 3 decades. He's now over 40 years sober, a spiritual warrior, a force in the arts, and a man who's lived through pain and turned it into purpose. My brother, welcome to the Seano Show. Dylan McDermott, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Seano.
Yeah, we're here.
We're
right?
here.
The magic of recovery,
yes. Man. Here, Otis is here too.
Otis is making a special guest appearance.
He's making his appearance here on the podcast. I think this is his first podcast here.
First podcast.
Can we see Otis here?
Let's get Otis on.
Otis, come over here.
Come on,
make an appearance
hello.
because,
this, I know dogs are a big part of your life.
Make his insurance every year.
Yeah. Oh, how's your day been, man?
It's good. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk to you and, get down and dirty and talk about the good stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. And you just were kind enough, you've been asked to do a lot of different things. And this is probably the first real podcast you've done.
Yeah, I've been asked many times, but, I trust you. I don't trust everybody. So I know that your heart's in the right place and I feel like I can talk to you. I think if you're meeting someone for the first time, you may be a bit guarded or whatever. So with you, I think we can talk freely about a lot of things.
All right. Should we get at it?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about young Dylan.
Sure.
Upbringing.
Yeah.
Walk us through it.
I mean, it's my childhood was pretty rough and tumble. I think it's hard when I tell people about my childhood, it's hard for them to understand because they don't have a reference for it. So it kind of goes over their head. Just doesn't make any sense. And it formed who I was in many ways, because as it does as a kid, there are certain things that happen to you that forge so many different layers. But I had gone through a hell of a lot by the time I was 5 years old. My mom was gone by the time I was 5. My dad wasn't in the picture. My poor grandmother had to raise me and my sister. She had raised 3 kids of her own, and suddenly she had 2 more to raise.
Wow.
That was, it was dark. It was a dark time. They always say, may you have your troubles early. Luckily, I had mine early. But I had to find a way out of the darkness because there was a lot of darkness and I was alone. So I understood at a very early age that I had to rely on myself. And that was an epiphany when I realized.
How old were you when you realized that?
I was probably 9.
Wow.
When I realized that no one was coming to save me, which I always say, I think Joseph Campbell talks about this in his books, that I am the hero I came to rescue.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Right. Wow. And I realized that at a very young age, that there was no one coming. And I think that when you have that epiphany, as we all do in life, I think there's a fantasy that everyone has that maybe someone's coming to rescue them, to save them, to take care of them, to fix them. And when you realize that they're not coming, that it's you, is when you become an adult. My story is more extreme than most, but I feel like I understood at a very early age that I was responsible for my life. And I better figure out how to live in this world that was filled with a lot of violence and a lot of destruction. And I had to navigate those very choppy waters at an extremely young age.
Where were you living at? At 9? Were you in Connecticut?
Yeah, I was born in a small town in Waterbury called, in Connecticut called Waterbury, Connecticut. And funny enough, all my trials and tribulations that happened there, they gave me my own boulevard. There's Dylan McDermott Boulevard.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
It's a short boulevard, but nonetheless.
Yeah, your own boulevard.
It's a boulevard. They gave me the key to the city. I was celebrated there. And believe me, I was not celebrated as a kid. So it's a small miracle that those things happen. Because, on paper, none of those things should have happened for me. My life shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, big time.
People who have my story either end up in prison, have a needle in their arm, or they're dead. So I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky that I was able to stay alive long enough to find recovery, to find therapy, to get out of my own way, to help others, and to have a life. Those were things that I actually thought about as a kid. So those were things that I was conscious of. I was blessed with maybe having that ability to see at a very early age. I don't think I didn't have time to be a kid. There was no time. My childhood was over.
Walk us through that, boy. What was that like for you?
Just, I became the man of the house at a very early age. I had to help my grandmother. She worked 2 jobs. She worked in a machine shop in the daytime and she catered at night. There was no money. So I had to go out and I had to work.
Right.
I was just thinking to myself the other day that I've worked 43 years as an actor straight.
Wow.
And then I was thinking before that, I must be, 10 years old and I'm ringing your doorbell. Can I shovel your snow? Can I rake your leaves? Can I wash your car? Whatever. I have been doing that since I'm 10. I have not stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably never
have
will.
not stopped.
Yeah, right on.
Since that moment.
Yeah.
Working.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really sort of institutionalized in many ways because all I know is how to work. Even now, I'm like, I just finished this show and I was in my yard today and I was enjoying sitting down and I was like, I got to get the next job.
Got to get going. Right?
I'm just built to work.
Yeah,
my Chinese sign is the ox.
Yeah.
And the ox just plows the field until they drop dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the ox does. They work. And I'm just bred for that. But as a kid, it was, there was no time to be a child. There really wasn't. It was like I had to help my grandmother. I had to bring in some money. I had to make sure that she was safe. I had to make sure my sister was safe. So I don't remember, being a quote unquote kid, besides playing some basketball.
And where was your dad at that time?
My dad was an alcoholic. He was one of those falling down drunks. When I'd see him once in a while, he'd come and take me to the movies, but it was intermittent. And he always smelled like booze.
Wow.
And so there wasn't a lot of time for, our relationship until he got sober. I think I must have been, because he took me to a meeting when I must have been around maybe 12, 13 years old. And I remember going to my first meeting with him. I tagged along. Yeah. And those were the days of people smoking Lucky Strikes and Camels and trench coats.
The good old days, yeah.
It was only older men.
Right.
it was a completely different vibe. But nonetheless, I've been around AA for as long as I can remember. So, maybe he knowingly or didn't, I don't know, but he was able to kind of help me. He certainly helped me get sober. I went to, I think, my first meeting when I decided that I wanted to get sober in Massachusetts. We went together. So I've been around for a long time.
When did you leave Connecticut for New York City?
I left when I was about 16. Yeah, I really was. I was enamored of New York. I would take the bus down from Connecticut to New York, and it was metallic, man. It was like, wow, the city was just so alive, and art was happening, and I was so attracted to the art world. And New York was a different place back then. There was real artists. It wasn't like gentrified or it's expensive as it is now. It was that's what I was the most attracted to. I'd see Andy Warhol walking in Chelsea, and I knew painters, and I was just so attracted to it that really something struck me so deeply, because I realized at some point, I was born an artist. Mm-hmm. And the way when I saw the world was through an artist's eyes. It wasn't through anything else, because I could see the beauty and the art in distortion. Even though things were so out of control, I could still, I can make art out of it in some way by scribbling in my notebook. Music saved me. I would hitchhike 3 states to see Kiss. You know what I mean? I would just
that's great.
I put my thumb out and
back. Oh yeah, right on.
And I would hitchhike and not know where I was, or somehow and miraculously I would end up at the concert, and then I had to get home.
Oh my God!
And,
right, but you had to do it. That's just who you were. It's going to happen.
It was just that I just loved music and going to concerts, and Kiss eventually signed a guitar with all their signatures on it for me.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just I think I've always seen the world through an artist's eyes. I can just I walk into a room like this, and I can pick out the thing that I think is the most artistic, which is this. The time is now. You know what I mean? It's just.
That's it. Right on.
Just.
Were you living with your dad then at 16?
I lived with him briefly. It didn't really work out.
In the village?
Yeah. It just wasn't. I needed my own place.
You're right.
So very quickly I got my own place.
At 16?
Yeah.
And were you working at the bar, at your father's bar then?
I was a busboy when I was 15. He put me to work as a busboy, which was great. I really enjoyed it. And I would work, to, I don't know what time I came in. I came in pretty early, maybe like 5 o'clock, and I worked till 4 o'clock in the morning. And then at that time, we would go to after hours clubs. There was all these Irish after hour clubs that you had gambling, and you'd stay there till 1 in the afternoon, and you go home and sleep a few hours, then you do it again. And it was so exciting. And I'm 15 at that point. With no real restrictions or guidance. I could do whatever I wanted. And so that's when I first understood this idea of celebrity and how people treated celebrities differently. I used to wait on John Belushi when I was a kid, and I could see how people treated him differently. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting that they hold him in such high regard. That's the first time I ever understood what that was. I didn't even know, when I was a kid, television taught me everything. It's ironic that I would end up on television, because I would look at television programs and I would mirror what they did on television. I would learn from how to live from I Dream of Jeannie, F Troop,
Hogan Serials.
Yeah, whatever was on TV. I was like, that's how you behave. That's what you do. Oh, okay. I'll just do that.
And I bet you were good at mimicking the behavior.
Yeah, so I sort of made up my personality as I went along. So it is funny that I would end up on television because I spent so much time not only watching television but studying it. How did people actually live? The courtship of Eddie's father, the relationship between the boy and his father fascinated me. And so maybe, that's how I'll act with my dad. So everything was just a mirror.
Got it. And when you saw Belushi, were you like, I want that, or I want to be an actor, or like, this is, how do I do this? Or what were you thinking when you saw him?
I think to be successful, you have to link up pleasure to it. So I linked up pleasure, that it was actually pleasurable, that people liked him. And success meant that people liked you. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's the first time I was aware of what the power of what is fame, I suppose. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword. But at that point, it didn't seem like it was. It just seemed like it was like, wow, how incredible.
When did you decide you wanted to be an actor?
It really was my father's third wife, Eve Ensler. Her name is now V. She wrote the Vagina Monologues. She saw something in me that I don't think I saw in myself at a very early age, because I would make her laugh and I was a bit of a clown. And she said, you should be an actor. And I was like, really? What? How do you do that? She goes, there's a school in the village called HB Studios. Why don't you go over there? We'll go over there. We'll enroll you. And I was just like, this is crazy. I had no concept of what it was to be an actor. For me, the first time the exercise was just walk across the stage. It was still to this day one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Wow. And how old were you?
15. I think it was because people were looking at me, and there was this exposure suddenly that someone was watching me walk across the stage, or watching me at all, or looking at me. I think for most of my life, and it's probably why I became an actor, is because I felt invisible. I never felt that anyone saw me. So this idea of acting was, oh, wait a minute, you mean someone would see me? Is that possible?
Oh, wow.
Because as a kid, I felt incredibly invisible. I was always shocked when the teacher would even call on me. So there was a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of isolation that I had to work through to become, the actor I am today. That really was transformative. I think acting in many ways saved my life, because I could act out all these emotions that I couldn't normally do in my waking life. I could suddenly act them out. And there was such freedom in that. I could be all these different characters, and I could work through these emotions that I never could as Dylan. And that gave me, wow, that really just transformed me emotionally. And then I caught up in time, in real time. I finally caught up to myself. But it was the acting that allowed me to have emotions. That's why acting is so, that's why I think everybody should take an acting class at least, because it frees you up somehow.
And where were you at that 15, Dylan, stage in your addiction at that point?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was full blown at that point. I started very early with everything, with drugs and alcohol, to anesthetize myself pretty quickly. And so I was in trouble. Thank God for V. She really, I always say, you always need one person,
right,
in life who could change your life. All it is one person. That's why it's so important to help others, because you never know how it's going to hit them. You never know what it's going to do to them. And she believed in me. She was the very first person to believe in me. And
she wasn't that much older than you, right?
No, she was, when I was 15, she was like 23. And she became my mother, essentially. And then she adopted me when I was 19. And we've had this long relationship.
Incredible human being.
Yeah, she is.
Very special human being.
Very, very special. So bright, so talented. She's in London right now working on one of her plays. So it's just, but without her, I don't think I'm here.
No, you're not here.
I don't think I'm here. She saved my life. I always tell her that. Truly, truly, she saved my life.
Did you study at the neighborhood playhouse?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was Sandy there when you were there?
He was my teacher.
God.
Yeah.
Great Sanford Meisner.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was rough. You know, I had gone to Fordham. I graduated from Fordham at Lincoln Center. And that's when I first started acting. I started getting roles there, you know, significant roles. And there was one time when I was doing Equus, and there was actually only a couple of times in my life when that small, still voice comes to you. And I was doing Equus, and I'll never forget it. I think I'm 19 at this point. And a voice came to me as I was performing, and it says, "You can do this."
Ooh.
And I believed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday.
You didn't fight it. You said it's on.
I believed that voice.
Yeah.
And I never looked back from that moment, by the way. I threw myself into being an actor because of that belief, whatever that was, whether that was God, whether it was divine intervention, it almost doesn't matter because I believed it. And it helped me. And it was like a hand on my shoulder.
Mm.
And it said, "You can do this."
Wow.
And I believed it wholeheartedly, and still do to this day.
Yeah.
And then another time I was bartending, and these two guys come in. It's like 4:00. I forgot to lock the door. They come in, and I'm so sorry, guys. We're closed. And they said, "No, you're not." And so I knew there was going to be trouble. So sure enough, we start getting into it. I have to jump over the bar. I'm fighting these two guys on West 4th Street. And as I'm fighting them, another voice comes and says, "You don't have to have this life." And it just stopped me. And I was like, you don't have to have this life. Because that's the life I would have had.
Right. Wow.
You know, it would have been quiet desperation. And not long after that, I quit being a bartender, and I decided I was going to make my way as an actor. I didn't know how, but I threw everything into it. I had no, and I tell this to people sometimes, you know, don't have a backup plan.
Right. There's no
Because if you have a backup plan, you're going to use that.
Right.
And I said to myself, you know what? I don't know how it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just know it's going to happen. And I'm going to have to make money to eat as an actor. And I don't have any money. But I was like, fuck it. Let's go.
Okay. I want to talk about your career, then I want to talk about sobriety. Can we do that?
Sure.
I think I got this right. Was your first like real big break Hamburger Hill?
Yeah, Hamburger Hill was, I was on Broadway. I had just finished acting school, and somehow, I think it was V again, knew the casting director, Meg Simon. And they were replacing the cast of Biloxi Blues. And I got an audition. And it was Neil Simon.
Oh my God, of course.
Neil Simon was in the room. I had to audition for Neil Simon. Yeah.
How old were you then?
I'm like, I don't even know, early 21.
Wow.
And I remember I got several callbacks, and it was coming down to it. And there was only like, I don't know, 3 guys. And I knew it was a turning point. because I had auditioned for William Morris, and they were like, you don't have any credits. Come back when you have credits. Blah blah blah, the whole spiel. So I remember like it was yesterday again. I was in my kitchen in my small apartment in New York, and I had this call back, and it's Neil Simon and Gene Sachs, and I remember talking to myself, saying, there is no doubt here. We are erasing doubt. In fact, you are getting this role. I remember having that conversation with myself. Like, this is fucking it, pal. You get this role, it all changes. So there can be no hiccups here. You go into that room and you take it. You take it. And indeed, I was so laser focused, and I got the role. And suddenly, and I had 3 rehearsals with the stage manager, and I was on Broadway.
Oh my God.
3 rehearsals.
Wow, I didn't know that. Fuck.
And suddenly I'm on Broadway. And
what is that like? But what was that like?
Well, you have no process. I mean, you just barely know the lines, and suddenly you're thrown out into the sea, and it's just like, whoa. So you're working just the opposite of what the way you should work. There's no process. So you're learning as you're going, as you're performing in front of 1,500 people. You're learning, where the laughs are, the timing. Your backstory, everything. You just you have to work backwards.
How long did that show run for?
I was on it for over a year. It was great. I was making money. I was on Broadway. I enjoyed performing 8 days. I mean, eight shows a week. So it was good training.
Wow.
But that opened the door for me. William Morris comes, then they signed me because now I'm in a play.
Where did you learn that erase, it's on, you will win, this role is yours, there's no doubt about it, just go claim it, it's yours, take it?
Yeah.
Where did you get that?
From my hard scrabble childhood, I had to fight a lot when I was a kid. There was always fights. And so I had to, when I got out my door for the day, I would have to run. Because there was always some beef.
Some shit.
That was going down. So for me, again, I wouldn't recommend any of this. It was my life. That way of living made me tough.
Yeah. And
that toughness allowed me to be tough on myself in a way where that there was going to be victory. I believe in victory in life. It's one of my favorite words.
Yeah, right on. It's a good word.
That there is victory. And you only know victory by failure. You don't just become victorious.
Right.
Right. You evolve into victory. But by failing, which we all do, and there's a lot of lessons to learn through failure. You realize that it's better to be victorious. I was born, one of the greatest things I say is that, growing up poor was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Because I value money.
Yeah.
I value what it's like not to have things. I value what it's like to struggle. And I worked my ass off in this life so I could provide for my kids and have a different life that no one in my family ever did. So when you asked me that, I think there was a fierceness to me from the get that you're going to have to kill me to stop me.
Yeah, right on, man.
And that started at a very early age. And then I just kind of, transferred that into my career, if you will, and used that same technique of that I'm not giving up, no matter what. It's just not going to happen. You can You can say no to me a million times, and I'll still show up for because I know that there's a chance you're going to change your mind. There's a chance that somebody might drop out, whatever.
Right. I'll be here.
I will be here.
I'll be here.
So I have learned to, and I think you need this as an actor. You really have, and I talked to my daughter about this and a lot of actors. You know, the hardest thing for all actors is this rejection that we all go through.
Mm-hmm.
It's an enormous amount of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I'm sure you lost some big roles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're rejected all the time. But once in a while, you know, they pay baseball players a lot of money to hit that ball, you know, 2 out of 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of rely on that, you know, I'm not going to get every role, but what the roles that I do get, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make it great.
Yeah. And my God, you've gotten some good ones, brother.
Yeah.
Hamburger Hill, Open Call, right?
7 callbacks. They kept bringing me in for bigger roles. There was a freedom that I had when I auditioned because I never thought that I was going to get it. So I was free. I wasn't tight at all because I'm like, you're never going to cast me. I have no credits, you know, doing a play on Broadway. You know, they'll give it to somebody else. So, all right, keep calling me back. So there was a real freedom. And also, you know, for that particular role, the director, John Irvin, cast me because he said that I had the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
And that came from my childhood.
Yeah. Explain to people what the 1,000-yard stare is.
It's, you know, it really is someone who has seen too much.
Right on. Yeah.
And he recognized that in me. And that's why he cast me, he told me. So again, turning poison into medicine.
Yes, sir.
Is what we do in life.
Straight up, man.
That's what we do.
Right on.
No matter what happens to you, and it almost doesn't matter what happens to you. But if you can transform that and turn that poison, whatever happens to you in life, and turn it into medicine, then you will be victorious. And that's what I was using.
That's great, man.
When I started to get these roles.
I think you told me that was a very difficult shoot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Was there a coup going on during that time?
Yeah, it was 1986. It was the Philippines. Aquino was just coming in.
That's right.
So there was a lot of unrest. 2 people died. We had at least 2 funerals that I remember making the movie.
Wow.
That's how difficult the situation was. Makeup artist died. We had a funeral for him. Another, an electric was electrocuted.
Oh, wow.
It was brutal. It was brutal. It was like you're in the jungle of the Philippines, burning 38,000 black tires, you know, to black out the sun.
Wow.
Wow. There's no trailers. You have one uniform. They hose you down if you get muddy. And I was like, man, if this is making movies, I don't know if I want it. This is a little rough, you know. But that really was the beginning. You know, the New York Times wrote an article about me called "A Searing Debut," and that really opened up.
It's a great movie. Still holds.
Yeah,
it's a great fucking movie.
It changed everything. And I remember I was in my bathtub and I was reading, I think, another script, and I got the call that I got the role. And I was shocked. I could not believe it. I was like, what? I'm going to be in a movie? I just thought I would be a stage actor. And the idea of being in a movie was just beyond my scope. I didn't think it was going to happen. And then suddenly it was like, I'm in the Philippines and I'm one of the leads of this movie. It's like, how the hell did this happen?
Yeah. You're sober then?
Yes.
How many years?
Just one.
Wow. First year sober.
Yeah.
In the Philippines doing a movie.
That's right.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, man.
Yep.
And did you struggle in your first year with wanting to relapse, any of that? Or did it come like you were like, no, I'm not going back? I don't remember. I forget that.
You know, I didn't, there was so much addiction in my family that I had made a conscious decision that I wanted to have a life. I really wanted to have a life that was different from my family. And I think that sobriety was really the bridge that allowed me to have a life. But I knew that I wasn't going to be successful if I remember, you know, working with the bartenders and the waiters and waitresses, and of course they were all actors, and they were always drunk, and they were like, I understand why I can't get a job. I'm auditioning all the time. And they're just like fucking wasted. And I was like, the dream for my life was big. I had a dream. You know, I'm a dreamer. I still dream to this day. And my dream was like, I'm gonna do this. Yeah. I'm gonna be a successful actor. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna do that. It was delusional in many ways, but you kind of need a little bit of that delusion in order to succeed. Otherwise, if you think about it, you're never leaving the house.
You're never leaving the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which happens.
Yeah,
mostly.
It happens. And then Still Magnolia after that?
Yeah, Steel Magnolias came, which was another big movie. The casting director really loved me in Hamburger Hill, and suddenly I'm just the opposite of Hamburger Hill. I've never seen more food in my life, and you know, catering, and movie stars galore, and I was like, this is incredible. This is making movies.
This is making movies, yeah.
Trailers and hair and makeup, and none of that stuff existed on a Hamburger Hill. So suddenly I was in the heart of, this huge Hollywood movie.
And what did you learn on that film? Anything stand out?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, watching Sally Field work.
Wow.
Was just an acting lesson. I saw her, when she was grieving, she was screaming into a pillow, and, she was doing the work. She was rooted. She had a technique. She was committed to her craft. And I really admired her for that. I was like, damn, she's all the way in. I love that. That's how I want to work. That's how I am working from now on. And I thought, wow, she's a huge star, and she's doing the work. And so I was just like so impressed by that. And she taught me a lot, because that's what I want. I wanted to be like her. And that's what you do, right? You give yourself these little heroes, and you're like, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. I want that career. I want what she has, what he has. That attraction. So I was attracted to the way she worked.
In The Line of Fire. I think I was with you when you got that role. I think right? What year was that?
Yeah, that was like 93 maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a bit of a little lull. But luckily I had auditioned for other movies. I didn't even audition for that movie. The casting directors I auditioned for Jurassic Park, I think it was. And they gave Wolfgang Peterson my audition tape for that. And he cast me off of that audition for another role. This is why it's important to show up every single time for auditions, because you never know who's watching.
Right.
So my audition was good enough for me to get in The Line of Fire. So that's why it's so important to show up every single time, because you just never know.
Right. Just never know.
And I remember I was so happy. I was on the 10, and I forget where I was going. And I look in the rearview mirror, and a motorcycle cop is behind me with his lights on. And I was like, oh shit. And I'm all the way over on the left. I pull over to the right, and I see him throw the gloves down on his bike, and he's coming straight towards me. And I'm like, oh man, this is bad. And I said, I rolled down the window and I said, I'm so sorry. I just got cast in a Clint Eastwood movie. And he was like, oh, really? Which one?
So did you get taken or no?
No, he let me go. I was like,
There you go.
Clint Eastwood, you're going to Clint Eastwood's partner.
good.
It's fantastic.
What'd you learn from him?
I mean, there's not too many people, I've been fortunate enough to be around some incredible movie stars. People who are like Paul Newman when I was a kid, hanging around with him and friends with him and of course working with Clint. People who are bigger than the camera, Clint is an icon.
Uh-huh.
There are very few of those in the world. You can't teach that. He just is bigger than the camera. He's an icon. So I knew that I was never going to be that when I got that role. So I had made a decision that I was going to be as vulnerable as possible.
Oh, wow.
Because I knew I couldn't.
Yeah, you can't.
There's no way I was going to be in competition with him at all. So I decided that I was going to be as vulnerable as I could. My character was very vulnerable. He was scared. And I had used that to contradict what his character was, which, was hairy cat, a bit of a hard ass. And I was like, okay, I know what to do. And it worked.
Worked really well.
Yeah. Because I was I was trying to be as vulnerable as possible, as scared as possible. Everybody knows that Clint Eastwood partners dies.
Yeah,
they all die.
Yeah.
It was not a shock to anyone.
Right.
So everybody knew that was coming. So I had, enough time on screen where I had to, create this character and make that decision to be as vulnerable as I could.
What about Malkovich?
Yeah, I mean, he was great in that movie.
Yeah.
He was doing the work too. He had this character devised, and he knew exactly one of his best roles. And by the way, one of Clint's best roles. The Wolfgang Peterson did such a great job on that movie.
God, it's such a great
when I look back on that movie, it's probably the most perfect movie I ever worked on. Everything.
Really?
Worked. Yeah. The script was beautiful. The director was perfect. The casting was fantastic. Everything was there. And the whole thing shot like butter. It just shot itself. I never had that experience again.
Oh, that's
Not
it.
like that.
Right.
Maybe with Jodie Foster, because she's such an incredible director. But everything worked in that movie. I thought that was going to be every movie. But no.
No.
It's so hard to make a good movie.
It's really hard to make a great movie.
Yeah, and that's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
So I was really blessed to be a part of it.
Let's talk about The Practice.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
7 seasons.
That part was custom designed for you, man.
Well, again, it was a time, not like it is today. Back then, television was, there was a clear delineation between being a movie actor and a television actor. Now it's all the same. All movie actors do television shows. But back then, that was not the case. So I knew that I wanted to get better as an actor. I knew David Kelly was a good writer. But at the same time, I was scared that if this didn't work, it would have hurt me. But again, my intuition and my instinct for The Practice, as it was with American Horror Story. I would always tell Ryan this too, that I said to him, this is going to be your biggest show. And I had this huge intuition with The Practice, that it was going to be successful. Like I knew it. And it wasn't initially. It wasn't.
That's right.
It really sort of hobbled along. And then they moved the time slot and then it became successful. But initially it was not. And I thought, damn, how could I be so wrong about this? I knew it. And then sure enough, it kicked in.
Wow.
I only had that a couple times in my life, by the way, The Practice and American Horror Story.
Really?
Yeah. Where my intuition was so huge.
Wow.
That I just knew.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, not so much.
Oh, that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
American Horror Story.
Yeah.
We got to see a real interesting part of your personality, brother.
Yeah, because, I had done the practice for many years and people thought I was that guy. And this is the problem with being an actor, right? Is that people decide who you are.
Right.
It's your job to change their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly I'm 7 seasons of this character. Everybody thinks I'm this earnest lawyer. I couldn't be further apart from that. So I knew, again, being ahead of the curve, that I had to change. I needed to do something a little darker, weirder, whatever. So when I read that script, the pilot of American Horror Story, I was like, this is it.
Oh, wow.
This is it. I need to do this.
Did you have to convince your management? Were they like, no, let's keep doing these?
Well, again, horror on television.
Right.
Maybe the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
It wasn't done.
Mm-hmm.
No one had done it successfully. So Ryan was the first person to do it. So everybody was not sure about it. But I knew it was like, oh no, this is my ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met with him, we got along like gangbusters. I met with him and Connie, and we just all got along, and it was on.
Yeah.
But I knew, again, I think you have to have some kind of awareness of who you are. And now, by the way, I'm in the same place again. I just finished 5 years shooting 2 shows in New York. I have to change again. And that's your job as an actor, that you always have to change. You have to reinvent yourself really every 10 years if you want to have any kind of longevity. I can't be one guy. The people who are one guy, they don't usually have a 40-year career because people get sick of you, justifiably so. If I saw myself as that one character, I would be sick of me too. So you have to change, you have to evolve, you have to reinvent, all that stuff. Otherwise, you're going to have a short career.
Now, my favorite show, brother, is Hollywood.
Yeah.
Wow, fuck, dude. Tell that character, how'd you come up? How did that all work?
Well, Ryan had called me and said,
God,
I have
it's such an interesting show, man.
And short-lived. It was too short-lived. There should have been another season, at least. He called me, and I came to read the script in his office, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is the role of a lifetime. This is the role of a lifetime." And this is the stuff that I want to do. I mean, even though I've done a lot of leading roles, the character work was always the thing I was most intrigued with. And funny enough, I was shooting Hollywood and American Horror Story at the same time. 2 vastly different characters.
Wow.
Probably the happiest I've ever been, because I would go from set to set.
Wow.
And it was American Horror Story 1984.
Oh, wow.
And I was playing this dude with like shaggy hair and a mustache, and he lost both thumbs, and he's a killer, and it's just like fucking nuts. And then I'm going to this pimp, Hollywood, at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
Because, for Hollywood, I made sure I knew I had my underwear custom made. I knew exactly how this guy was going to look. I wanted the mustache. I wanted the hair, the suits, everything was custom. He was a failed actor. So emotionally, I knew exactly where he was coming from, because now he was in a desperate position where he didn't make it as an actor. So now he's got to have a side hustle. So now he's pimping out dudes. So it's just like, wow. The whole thing was just, what a character.
You can't play that character unless you come from a background like you did, man.
Yeah.
Because you're just too on. Your instincts, you learn, right?
Yeah. You have to, growing up in the bar business was really helpful, because even on organized crime, when I played, the gangster mafioso, I had waited on those guys. I knew those guys. So growing up in a bar, it's sort of like, Eugene O'Neill, Iceman Cometh, you're surrounded by all these characters.
Right.
That's how I was as a kid. All these, the bartender pulls his glass eye out and squirts it with a soda gun and then pops it back in his eye. You know what I mean? He's inhaling cigars all night, and you're just surrounded by all these characters,
right.
and I'm just a voyeur. I pick up on everything. I'm recording everything, every moment.
It's all art.
Yeah,
man.
So that was so rich for me. So all these characters that I got to create later in life, a lot of them came from, my time in the bar.
I bet they did.
Or growing up as a kid and, being surrounded by gangsters. My mother's boyfriend was a bank robber, and to see him come home and have the money from the bank robberies and the gang that was around him and that whole world.
Yeah.
So there was rich with danger and characters.
Why didn't that show get picked up? What happened? Just to get an audience?
I don't know exactly.
God, it was so well done.
It really was. And the next season they were talking about me. I was going to play Marlon Brando in the next season. There was some talk of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was already.
I hope they bring it back.
I don't think so. I think it's too late now. Ship has sailed.
Now.
But I will always love that character. I even in my head, again, this is an important thing, is I dream about my characters as well. So I make sure I want them to infiltrate my dreams. So one night I'm sleeping and I have a dream that character tap dances.
Oh, wow.
And they came to me in a dream, and I was like, oh, I have to tap dance in the show. So I go to the director, and I said, I want to, in this scene, in Musso and Frank's, there was a scene in Musso and Frank's, I said, I want to tap dance before I sit down. So I had my tap shoes on, and I do a little tap, and then I sit down for the scene. But that came to me in a dream.
Oh, that's so beautiful, man.
So that's the kind of work that I love. You know what I mean? When it's
just
you're
comes.
always dreaming, you're thinking, you're daydreaming, what if I do this and what if I do that and what about this? That's the thing I love about acting, because then I'm always thinking about what can I do in this scene when others are sort of like, goofing off in between takes. I will stay in character. I remember I did a movie called The Clove Hitch Killer where I stayed in character the whole time. It was really difficult. But I knew I couldn't break, being Dylan. I had to stay in him to have that authenticity of that character, because it was so far from me, and I would look like a clown if I didn't do it properly. And so I shaved my hairline back. I put a fat suit on. I changed my voice. I changed the color of my eyes. Everything, my walk, everything was different. So I had to stay in that in order to maintain the realism.
Wow. All right, brother. Let's talk about sobriety.
Sure.
How many years now?
40.
Fuck.
Yeah.
40 years.
40. It seems inconceivable.
I know, right?
40 years of anything seems
I know, man. 40-year
like
career, 40-year sobriety. Because you got sober at how old?
23.
Right. Let's talk about some of the things you learned in sobriety, man. I know.
I mean, I've learned everything. Just, the program is taught me everything I know. Those 12 steps, doing them, quite a few times. You change so much over time. I remember for me, 5 years was very difficult because suddenly, all the stuff that you learn to do in life doesn't work anymore, and you have to change. That's when the steps really started to work for me. I had to root out everything.
Can you give us an example, please?
Well, just things that how my behavior. I think that you can put down the drink and be dry, but not sober. I think it's the steps really that give you that sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
I always had a pretty good relationship with my higher power. I think as a kid, I really reached for to God for help, because there was so much chaos. So I had a pretty good relationship. I thought I had a good understanding of what the higher power is. But I think that I was stuck in many ways. I was stuck inside my own stuff. And I think that the steps really helped me make amends. That was really important for me. But for me, it was really the spiritual part of the program, helping others, being of service. That really also, I didn't fully understand that until I started to do it. And that's something I admire about you, by the way, is that how much service you do.
Thank you, brother.
I think that when you do service, you're not self-conscious. You're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about someone else. And you're getting the attention off yourself in many ways. And you feel good. You're helping someone. And that always feels good when you help another. So I knew that I took a commitment very early at the Mustard Seed in New York. And,
that's great.
I ran the meeting for at least a year.
Wow.
And that really helped me. So I think that showing up, going to meetings, being of service, helping others, really helped me get out of my shell.
How about forgiveness?
Forgiveness is that's kind of a lifelong journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I wish you could just forgive yourself or forgive others, but it seems like you have to constantly forgive yourself and forgive others, at least for me.
What are you thinking right now?
Just about, the journey of my life, all of it. Suddenly I'm 63 and you're like, wow, you still want to live more. You want to do more. You're not finished yet. But there's always, you never know when your time is up, and sometimes it feels like you're just beginning. You know what I mean? There's so much to learn. There's not enough. One lifetime is not enough. There's so much to do. I think you always want more time. No matter how much time you have.
Right.
Even if I live to 100, you still want more time. You would do anything for one more day here.
Yeah, right on.
As hard as it is, you would still do anything for one more day.
My audience, Dylan, is going to be very interested to know where you came from and everything your father, your mom's life was taken. How did you make peace with all that stuff?
I don't know if you make peace with it. I think you learn to live with it. You accept that, I had to accept this is where I come from, and these were the cards that were dealt me, and what am I going to do with them? And you make something out of nothing, right? You turn poison into medicine, whatever saying you want to use. It almost doesn't matter. You can transform your life, no matter who you are, no matter what's happened to you. You can transform it. You can make it better. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God for the program, because, that gives you a great foundation. A lot of people don't have that foundation. A lot of people who are in prisons and mental institutions is because of drugs and alcohol. They don't have those tools, or it never took. Maybe they were introduced to it, but it didn't take. I always believe that, the angels are out there, right? The messengers are out there, and they will come, and they will tell you, and they will give you the information. You may not take that information, but they come, and they tap you on the shoulder. You have to be open, and you have to listen, but they come.
They always come.
Yeah, they always come. But sometimes you're blinded. Sometimes you don't want to hear it. But they come, for sure.
Speaking of angels, you became a father in sobriety.
A couple times, that's right.
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah. What's that been like for you, man, to be a father?
Again,
and talk about your kids, man.
Yeah, I mean, thing I didn't know about kids is that one day when you least expect it, they start taking care of you. You know, you think that, because you just give your kid everything. You take care of them and make sure they're safe and make sure they're good. And then one day as they get older, suddenly, you know, the script is flipped and they start taking care of you, funny enough. And that was so surprising to me. But I think that, you know, me having kids was like me healing myself in many ways. I gave to my kids what I never had. I gave them everything I ever wanted. And in doing that, I was able to heal a part of myself while loving them. So it was great to be able to do that because I healed a part of myself by giving them everything I wanted.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Wow. What have you learned about love and sobriety?
Well, I think you learn how to love. I'm not quite sure I knew how to love before being sober. Because, you know, you being sober for all these years is that you strip away so much and your heart opens. You know, my heart is open. More so now than ever before. It really is.
Why?
I think I'm less afraid, truly. There's nothing to be afraid of now, really. I'm not trying to prove anything, and I want love. I mean, the most important thing in life is love. There's nothing. There is nothing else. You know, when we leave here, we will be remembered by the people that we have loved. And who loved us. That's it. The television shows and the movies will all fade. But then you will live on in people's hearts. In your children's hearts and your friends' hearts, your mates' hearts, whatever it is. You will live on in their heart. That's what life is. That's what love is. And there's nothing more important than that. You know? And it's not a Hallmark card. It's not a cliche. When you truly, truly love someone and you open your heart and you give yourself freely just because you love that person, that's what you will be remembered for. Not for any accolades or how big your house is or what car you drove. It will be because you loved. And I think I'm keenly aware of that now.
If I remember correctly, you were a big fan of the St. Francis prayer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
To love, then be to loved, right? To love, then,
that's right. That's right. Yeah, because again, you know, it's, you're helping others.
Right.
You're getting out of your way. And those people who have, you know, the Mother Teresa's of the world, you know, that being that selfless, they did good works.
Yeah, they did good works. Thanks for loving me, man. Brother.
Well, you know, you're easy to love. You're easy to love.
Well, yeah, you would come from the same place because
that's right.
When I get in the company of somebody like you, you respect that person, you take the direction and you follow it.
And you were great in the play.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Short Eyes?
Yeah.
80s? No. Short Eyes had to be 95.
Was it?
Did I get that wrong?
geez, I don't. You know, I have the poster at home. I'll look at it. Maybe there's a date on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did some magic there, man. On Main Street. Pinks.
Yeah, we sure did.
We did some magic there.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Final thoughts for people, brother?
I think, you know, it's, I would always say, keep dreaming.
Yeah.
Dream your life.
Right.
You know, see your life before it happens. That's what I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
I try to see it before it happens, whatever I manifest, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a big believer in that, that, you know, don't be afraid to dream.
Right.
Don't let anybody steal your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Don't shrink yourself because someone said you can't. You know, dream big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on, man.
Live hard.
Straight up.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Cool. The Seano Show is a production of iHeart Podcasts, hosted by me, Seano McFarlane, produced by Pod People and 28th Ave. Our lead producer is Keith Cornelek. Our executive producer is Lindsay Hoffman. Marketing lead is Ashley Weaver. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.